Hey, hey, hey. Can you guys hear me? I'm just going to bring up. What's going on, Daquan? Can you guys hear me all right? Sorry for the delay. Man, every time I come on YouTube, I'm telling you, man, something gets changed around or they move something, which make things a little bit difficult for me to find what I'm looking for. I'm pulling up. I guess I could use this monitor right here. I was going to use my iPad, but I guess I could see clear enough probably if I just move this a little closer. There we go. Then I can read the text messages more clear. I see the chat's been blowing up. Where we got folks representing from today? See, we got Belgium, Kenya. Where else we got going on in the chat? Shout out where you're from. Shout out. We got UK. We got, where else? France. And I'm just scrolling back up in the chat to see where folks are from. Australia. Maryland. South Africa, DC, Charlotte, London, Haiti, Montego Bay, Jamaica. Bless up yourself, Jamaica. You don't know. I got a special respect for that land of my birth. New Zealand, Brooklyn. Where's Barrowsville? Barrowville. And then we got California, Chicago, Jackson, Mississippi. Dominica, wow, that's a new one. Florida. What's up, Barry? In a few months, we're going to be state neighbors. Moving to Florida in a few months. Jamaica, congratulations. There are much professors. Okay, good. Thank you. We got folks even from Guatemala, Atlanta, Ghana, Cape Town, South Africa, Virginia, Louisiana, New Mexico. All right, Ecuador. Man, we even got some South America up in here. Marshville, France, Australia. You know, it's my pleasure. Portugal. It's my pleasure, man, to be able to visit one of these places, some of these countries. Tanzania, I would love to just be able to do nothing else but hop on a plane with some of my favorite buddies and we just go to all these places and we just teach gospel piano. That would be my blessing. All right, so we have currently 71 viewers. We're going to kick off with the discussion for this week. And that is song memorization. So I did something about a week ago where I sent out an email to everyone on my email list. And I say, what is your biggest problem? If there is one problem I can help you solve, what would it be? Respond to this email and I will give you a reply with a solution or point you into where the solution is. And obviously the inbox been blowing up. Currently I have about 80 plus emails still waiting in there to reply to. I've been replying to emails for the last 5 days. So I might have bit off more than I could chew there. But it was great because it really gave me some insights into the massive amount of problems that people have. I see a lot of the recurring problems coming up. And one of the overwhelming problems that a lot of people are having is song memorization. When I learn a song, I forget it a week later. Or I learn a song and then someone starts to sing the song in church and my brain go blank. And honestly, it's not something I really thought about before today, that folks may have problem memorizing song. And for a couple reasons. Naturally, I am a visual learner, kinesthetic learner. So I memorize things very quickly, not just mentally, but, kinesthetically. Muscle memory. I have a very good muscle memory. So once I see somebody do it, and then I do it for myself, that's it. It most likely stays with me. And so I'm going to talk about just some tips and tricks that I've been practicing for well over a decade now that has helped me become not only a better pianist, but I memorize songs a lot longer. So let's start with tip number 1. The first place I always recommend folks start when you're learning a song is to just listen to the song. Not one time, not 2 times, but whenever I do a song breakdown for you guys, I spent the last probably 4 days before shooting that tutorial just listening to the song. On my commutes, driving, if I'm going for a walk or a run on the treadmill, I am absorbing as much as I can about the song, as if I was the one that composed it. I need to be able to understand that song inside and out. I need to know what the bass man's doing, what the guitar man's doing, what the keyboard man's doing, where all the breaks are. And yes, I even learned the melody as if I were going to sing the song. So when during those days of me listening to the song, these are the things I'm just absorbing. I'm not forcing anything at this point, try to memorize chords or figure out chords. No, I'm just letting my body take it in. So that's tip number 1. Once I learn the song by just memorizing it, lyrics, melody, then I'll sit down with a notepad and then in front of my keyboard and I'll try to transcribe the chords. Now, for those of you who can't do that just yet, that's where you would jump to the next stage where you basically either pull up a sheet, a score, lead sheet or something from Google, or if you're part of my program, my membership, where I offer various song breakdowns, I provide MIDI, I provide lead sheets and scores. That's when you might go to one of those resources and you might start learning the song. But before you get to that place where you're learning the song, you should at least know the song internally fairly well by then through just listening it. So that's step 2. You start to learn the song after you've spent many days and weeks or hours listening to the song. For some songs you may know very well already because you've been hearing it for years, but there are some songs that you probably don't know as well. Those are the songs I'm referring to, the ones that you want to be able to just sit for a week with it and just get it into your system. All right? Then, when you're learning the song, always learn the melody. Just sit there first before you start fumbling around chords. Just get used to picking out that melody. Picking out the notes of the melody, which means you should be able to hum the melody from memory. You know? If I'm playing Amazing Grace, da 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 da. And every single song that I play on the piano, I can hum the melody like that, beginning to end. You don't have to know all the lyrics, but you gotta have that melody. And why is that? Melody is king. Melody is king. Melody wears the crown. The melody dictates the song. And so once you can remember the melody, then there's a strong chance that you'll remember some of those chord progression. Now, so once you learn the right hand melody, Then you start to learn the chords. And while you're playing the chords, you know what chords lined up with what melody note or the section of the melody that the chord's supposed to match. See, this thing is a puzzle. And we're putting that puzzle together so it makes sense to us. Now, when you're learning the chord, the next thing you want to be able to do is what I call harmonic analysis. You don't want to just go, well, Warren used this chord here and he used that chord. You don't want to just try to learn the chords by rote memory, where you're just playing back what you see on the paper or what is taught to you in a video. And you do that over and over and over for 2, 3, 4, 5 days. And then you say, I learned a song because I can play it by rote. That's one form of memorization, but it's the least important part of memorization because it's the first to go. Rote memory, when you do something over and over without thinking about what you're doing, the hands will memorize the movements and the changes, but the brain hasn't been involved in from a theoretical or intellectual perspective to understand what you're doing. So once the fingers can't memorize what's what anymore, then that's it. There's nothing else to further rely on. So you always want to do melodic, harmonic analysis of every piece you play. And just to give you a sense of what the harmonic analysis is, the first thing I always recommend is that you should know all the chords of the song via number system. So you should be able to say the song starts on the 1, then it goes to the 6. Oh, then it goes to the 2 dominant. Then it goes to a minor 4. You should be able to recite the number system of the chords that you're playing. So if you have a chord chart in front of you, just grab a pencil and practice translating the letters of the chords into their respective number. It's a good exercise to be able to see chords and tell what relationship there are in the number system. This is something you have to do for every song. It gets easy over time and you get a lot quicker doing it to the point where you don't even need to write in anymore. You'll get to the point where you can look at a chord and you can just see the equivalent number perspective inside the mind. That's the level I want you guys to get to. But you have to first start practicing converting those chords to numbers. So that's part of the analysis. Because it's not just good enough to say, it's a 6 chord. What kind of 6 chord is it? Is it a dominant? Is it a 9? Is it a minor 6, 9? Is it if it's a 13th? So that's part of the analysis you're doing. Then you can get a little bit further and then you start to analyze by sections. So, a standard song might take the form of intro, first verse, chorus, second verse, and then it typically goes into either a bridge or a vamp section or something like that. So that's the blocks of how most songs are structured. So then you need to start looking at the song and say, is the chorus or is the introduction something that's repeated someplace in the chorus or someplace in the verse? Or is it just isolated by itself? Some songs have what we call isolated introductions, which means the chords and changes played in the introduction doesn't appear anywhere else throughout the song. Most of the cases, the introduction is lifted from either a section of the verse or a section of the chorus. That's something you want to take note of. Why? If the verse and the introduction shares chords, once you learn the introduction, that means you also learn that section of the verse because they're identical. Sometimes they're chords from the verse that shows up in the chorus. You need to be able to pick that up. Sometimes the same chord progression from the verse used in the chorus, but the composer might change the key, or the composer might go to the relative minor to play out those progressions. So we're looking for similarities and patterns all throughout the song because then the brain gets involved. The brain starts to put that in a puzzle so it can remember what it looks like. These are some of the things we do to help with memorization. Number system, study the quality of the chords. So you need to know if the chord's major, minor, diminished, augmented, and then what position it plays in the number system. Is it the flat 7? Is it a sharp 2? And then for those who are a little bit more advanced, and when I say advanced, I mean you could be a little bit more advanced beginner or a little bit more advanced intermediate. You want to be able to then go and say, okay, this is a chord that doesn't belong to the key. You know, if you're in the key of C and somehow there's a C sharp diminish, you know, wait, that doesn't belong to the key. What is it? You need to be able to have an answer for every chord that is placed. If you don't know what it is, shoot me an email. I'll tell you. But the example I just used, if a C sharp diminished shows up when playing in the key of C, that means it's a chromatic diminished passing that's being used. And that C sharp diminished is most likely going to resolve to chord 2, which is D minor. And so you want to be able to talk your way from a theoretical perspective through the song about every chord and its role and relationship. That's what we call harmonic analysis. Once you can do that with every song, you're going to realize that the song stays with you longer. You learn a song this week, next month you realize you can still play the chords because it's no longer just route memory you're depending on. But now your brain also have a memory of how the song was put together harmonically. But then also because you would have learned the melody also, once you hear the melody of the song again, you kind of know where certain chords are supposed to go to tie with that melody. It's no longer this isolated thing. Let's see what else I have on my notes here. So those are the sort of 3-step process of learning and memorizing a song. First, spend some time just absorbing the song, listening, absorbing, trying to take mental note of everything that you hear that's going on. Learn the melody. Learn the melody as if you were going to sing it. You should be able to hum the song from beginning to end. Hum the melody completely in the correct tone. You don't have to be in the correct key, but the melodic tone should still be the same, which is a good way of practicing what we call oral singing. Getting used to being able to hear something and reproduce it, melodic line. Then step 3, you're going to do harmonic analysis of the piece. Harmonic analysis involves the number system, being able to tie chords to their respective number in the scale, the quality of the chord, so you need to be able to tell what the chords are. Are they major, minor, diminished, augmented? And if they're non-diatonic, what are they? What role do they play in the piece? A non-diatonic chord always have a specific function. The composer didn't just put it there because they wanted a weird chord. It usually has a specific function. Is it a minor 6? Or is it a major 6? If it's a minor 4, and where does the minor 4 probably come from? Minor 4, it could say it's a borrowed chord from the key of E flat, or it's borrowed from A flat. If it's borrowed from E flat, it is chord 2 of E flat that we pull in. If it's borrowed from the flat 6 or from the 6 of A flat, then that is, the minor 6 relative minor of A flat. So we look at all these things and we try to make sense of them. So those are the 3-step process of being able to memorize songs. Now there's another question I wanted to address that I get a lot of emails on, which is how to figure out chords to a song. How to figure out chords to a song. So that what they're asking there is, if I hear a song playing on the radio, or if someone starts to sing a song in church, how do I know what chords to play? Well, the thing is, that question doesn't have one answer. It all goes back to oral development, your ears. You have to train your ears to first understand and recognize intervals. Then you have to train your ears to be able to understand and recognize chords. Not just chord progressions, but chord qualities. So in other words, you're asking about a very advanced skill that takes time to develop. Now there's a process to develop, there's a process to developing your ear to be able to do that. Some people develop that process on their own over time through trial and error. Some people go through regimented programs and courses that teaches them how to listen and what to listen for and how to practice this listening skill so you get better at it. But everyone that you meet who can do that, it's not just something that they would just wake up one morning and can do. It's a deliberate process of developing your ear. So if it's not something you're able to do, then you have to start practice to be able to hear chords by ear. You can do it by yourself or you can seek help. Most of you here are probably familiar with my ear training course that teaches you how to listen, what to listen for. It's a pretty regimented course. It challenges you, but when you come out at the other end, you'll be a much better player and know exactly how to listen and what to listen for. So if you're saying, how do I figure out the chords to a song? There's no one answer for that, and there's no one solution. It's something that takes time. For all of you here, 92 viewers online right now, if you're not making ear practice a part of your regimen, then you're missing out significantly, especially if you want to be able to play by ear. If you want to be able to play by ear, then you have to start taking serious the concept of ear training and ear development, because that's where all the stuff comes from. All right? So that's the little synopsis I have for you guys today. Hopefully you found this very helpful. Hopefully you were taking notes on things to practice and start implementing on a regular. These things will help you to memorize songs longer. And let me add to that. I know a lot of songs, dozens of songs, hundreds of songs. But it's not that I have all these songs memorized. Some of these songs have left my brain a long time ago. So how is it that when someone starts singing, I know exactly what chords to play? That's because 1, I know the melody. 2, I have developed my ears to the point where I can hear any melodic line and then I can hear all the possible chord structures. So even if someone write the melody themselves, the melody has never been published, it's never been recorded, and that person starts to sing that song, even without touching the keyboard, I can hear all the different chord possibilities. I can go, ooh, supposed to go to the 6, or they can probably go to the 4. I hear all the different chord choices. And then once I sit at the keyboard and play to that melody, then I can even further solidify what the best chords are to match that song. Now again, this is not something I was born with. It's not something I was able to do even 5 years in playing piano. It took years of me practicing and playing dozens of songs, analyzing dozens of songs before I was able to get to this level. So for those of you who see this and go, I want to be able to do that, why can't I do that? Don't beat up yourself, because it's not an easy skill and it's not something that will come over time. It requires significant understanding about theory, harmony, ear training, melodic analysis, harmonic analysis, and all those skills combined, put together, gives you a very robust system to be able to do stuff like that spontaneously. So don't beat up yourself. Give yourself time. What is most important is that you start the process. Ear training, technique building, harmonic analysis and understanding, repertoire. My recommendation for everyone here is that you should be learning at least 1 new song a week. It's not about perfecting the song, but you got to get yourself used to seeing patterns and hearing patterns. And you can't get to that level if you're learning 1 song a month. You need to be churning out songs and going through songs, studying songs. And so the minimum should be 1 song a week. Learn some of the chords, learn some of the melody. Next week, move on to another song, And this is how you're going to see significant growth over time. All right, I'm going to turn to the chat now, because I know some of you might have some questions, and let me knock out some of those questions for you. I see a lot of folks who are still posting their location, state, country. Korea. Finally, the first time in forever, I'm able to join the live stream. At 3:44 a.m. here in Australia. Man, Lionel, you are a trooper. You stayed up for this? Mark Mack, how you doing, brother? Nigeria, Atlanta, we see you. Kelly in Florida. What's up, Kelly? Yeah, okay. Arkansas. A buddy of mine from Jamaica just went up. Actually, he not just went up, but he's studying classical piano performance out in Arkansas. Great guy. So we got a question from Ali that says, hey Warren, please explain how to find left hand notes while playing a melody. So Ali, the left hand, I always think of my left hand as the foundation hand. It is usually, if I'm not playing with a bass player, my left hand is usually playing some form of variation of the chords. Definitely the root. Left hand, if I don't have a bass player, always playing the root. Then I might play the 7 and the 5th. Now, if I'm playing a single melodic line in the right hand, then I make sure I'm playing the chords in my left hand. And that's how I treat it. My left hand, if it's not playing root and 7, or root, 5th, and 7, it might be playing octave with the 5th, or I might play 1 and 3, the root and the 3rd. And if I'm doing single line in the right hand, then I'll play full chords in the left hand. So you shouldn't have to go about figuring out notes for the left hand. Your left hand should be the foundation of carrying the root of the chord and the harmony of the song, especially if the right hand is not currently doing that. All right. Watching from South Africa, Tamil. What's up? We got Lee. I like to sing intervals that I know appear in songs, beginning of many melodies like Oh Christmas Tree, A Perfect Fourth, Amazing Grace, for the minor third and stuff. So I've heard about that. I'm pretty familiar with that concept, Lee, where people try to associate intervals based on the first 2 or 3 starting notes of a song. Like you'll say, for example, Amazing Grace. Ame, ba-dum, ba-da-dee-dee-dee, da-da-da-da. Those 2 first notes is an interval of a perfect fourth. Ame, you know. Now, that is not really a very effective way of learning intervals. Because when you hear a certain melodic line in an interval, to then try to think of a different song to sing that beginning note so you can figure out if it's a fourth, or 5th, or 6th, that method doesn't work. I can tell you that. When I just started this business of ear training, it was exposed to me and I tried it and it never worked. And most other players will tell you that that method doesn't work for them. Now, which method works best? In my opinion, the best method that works for intervallic practice is based on the major scale. You can also use the minor scales or the blues scale, but that's a little bit more advanced. For most people, you want to start with the major scale. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Do, ti, la, so, fa, mi, re, do. Do, mi, so, do. Do, so, mi, do. And you practice to sing different intervals based on the major scale. Do, ti, that's a major 7. Do, la, that's a major 6. You know? Da, da. And that's the method I have been using for well over a decade to perfect my interval singing. Practice the major scale. And I cover this in my ear training course, Once you get very comfortable with the major scales, then you can go to the minor scale. Da 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 dee da 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 da. That's a minor arpeggio I just sung. Once you get comfortable with the minor scale, you can move on to the blues scale and continue with whatever scales you want. But in my opinion, that's the best way to practice intervals. All right, let's see what's going on in the chat. Lewis say, how to use chord progressions in B flat minor scale, B flat minor blues scale. So, Lewis, chord progressions doesn't change based on the key you're in or based on the scale you're using. So, if I'm in the key of B flat, the chord progression stays the same. If you want to apply a B flat minor blues over that, then you're going to most likely want to turn some of the chords, the major chords, that is, the 1, the 4, and the 5, into dominant 7 chords. So whenever you're on the 5 chord, make sure you play a dominant 7. When you're on the 1 chord, play a dominant 7. When you're on the 4 chord, play a dominant 7. And the blues scale should still work. Now, you also, when you're talking about using the blues scales, you have to be careful of the type of song. If it's a more, what I call silky, slow R&B vibe that uses a lot of major 7th chords, then the blues scale most likely isn't the best scale to use. Blues scale and major 7th chords don't work well because they clash. Blues scales and dominant 7th chord is what work, which gives you that bluesy, gospely sound. And so you have to be aware of the style of music that you're playing. If you're playing something more major 7th heavy, your best bet is to use the pentatonic scale, not the blues scale. I have a question for you, sir. What's your question, Mom? Miss Hannah? What's your question? You didn't write the question. Richard say, how many songs do you have to listen and play a week as early intermediate from... Okay, so he's from Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. And his question, Richard, is how many songs do you have to play a week as an early intermediate player? So, Richard, first thing, I don't like labels because labels put people in boxes. So when you say how much songs do you have to learn as an intermediate, it make it sound like, well, if you're a beginner, you can learn less. Or if you're an early advanced player, you should be learning more, etc. That's not how the way I like to look at it. Learn as many songs as you can. Learn the musical journey is just like anything else in life. The more you put in, the more you get out of it. So a lot of people say, Warren, did you start at piano at 5 years old? And I go, no, I started piano at 18 years old. I was graduating high school and decided that music is what I wanted to do. And they seem stunned because in their mind, I play very well as someone who probably started at 5 years old. But the thing is, I condensed the amount of practice between ages 18 to 35 now that is equivalent to someone who started at 5 years old. Because I invested a lot of years, a lot of hours in practicing and preparation. And so it is very possible for you to achieve growth in 1 year equivalent to that of someone who's been playing for 5 years. It's all about the amount of time you put in. So I always give people the minimum, but never the maximum. So I always say the minimum you should shoot for is 1 song a week. The maximum, it all depends on how much time you have. If you have enough time on your hands to tackle 5 songs a week, do it. If you can tackle 10 songs a week, do it. Because the more you invest, the more you get out. It's that simple. Some people might say, how many hours I need to practice a day? It's not the amount of hours that you practice. It's how you practice. Is your practicing sessions structured, deliberate, and, what's that word? Regimented, consistent. If you can find just 1 hour in the day to practice, and those 1 hours are very planned out, you know exactly what you're going to do, what you're going to work on, and you don't variate from that regiment, and you can stay on that path for a month, 2, 3, 6 months, you're going to see more progress than the guy who sits down 3 hours a day fumbling, just playing what comes to mind and what comes to memory. The person who is more disciplined and more structured, even though they're practicing less times a day, they're going to see more growth, because that's what music is. Structure, planning, growth. You always want to be challenging yourself so that you're constantly stepping outside of your comfort zone. Usually someone who doesn't have a plan, doesn't have a structure, they sit and they reproduce the same things that they can already play. They sit and they play the same old songs. They sit and they use the same old chords, same old scales, playing everything in the same keys. There's no challenge. If there's no challenge, there's no growth. When you plan out your practicing using the practice templates that I've provided, when you plan out your practice session, then it forces you to constantly step outside of your box. And that's how you grow. All right. Question from Lionel. He says, I want to know how and why some songs use a flat 7 chord in the song progression, which is non-diatonic. The song, This Is My Desire. Well, I'm not familiar with that song, This Is My Desire. Oh, wait a minute. I think I know that one. Let me just move some of the stuff from the keyboard. I'm going to see if I can. Is it the song, Lionel? This is my desire to honor you, Lord, with all my heart, I worship you. Is that the song? That's the only song I know by that title. All right, is it So, this is my desire to honor you, Lord, with all my heart, I worship you. That the chord you're talking about, the flat 7? All right, let's talk about the theory behind that. Remember at the beginning when I talk about melody is king? Now, I was just singing that song in F sharp. And on that part of the song, to honor you, Lord, with all my heart, I'm on the 1, I worship you. And then I went to the flat 7 as a major 7. So I'm playing E major 7, which is, I believe, the question Lionel asked is, how does that work? Why is there a flat 7? It's a non-diatonic chord. Now, Lionel, that's because the melody on you, it's on a note that belongs to the flat 7 chord. Specifically, it's on the 2, the second note of the scale. That's the root. That's the second degree of the scale. So if you think about it, visualize it in whatever key you want. The 2 of the key is also the 3rd of the flat 7 chord. Now, that means I could also have substituted the 7, that flat 7 chord, with any other chord that has the 2 belonging to it. Lord, with all my heart, I worship you. So in this example, I just substituted the 2 chord, the flat 7 chord with the 2 chord, because both chords have that same diatonic note as part of the triad harmony. So that's whenever you see a chord in a song that doesn't belong to the key, 9 times out of 10, it's because the note belongs to part of the diatonic structure of that chord. And what do I mean by diatonic structure? The triad of the chord. We have the 1, 3, and the 5. So in this case, E major, we have E, G sharp, and B. The melody is on the G sharp. So that's why I could use the flat 7. It's a part of that triad diatonic harmony. So that's a good way of analyzing harmonies and chords whenever they're non-diatonic. Look to see what the melody note is on, and that will give you a very good example. Question: how do I know the right voicing to select for each song on the keyboard? So, good question. I'm sorry, I can't pronounce your name. Okay, it's just a few words joined together. It's Miss Hannah Tom. So the way you figure out voicing is 2 reasons. 1, you should already know the chords. Remember we talk about learning the chords? If you're not able to transcribe the chord yourself, find some lead sheets, find a video tutorial that show you the chord. Remember also we talk about you should be listening to the song over and over for at least days before. That means you kind of have the voicing sound of what the chord is in your head. So if you know the chord, and you know what the chord's supposed to sound like in the original song, then all you got to do is sit down and play around with the inversions and see which one sounds closer to what you hear in the recording. And that's how you figure out voicing. Now, if it's a song like, for example, you're playing in church, you kind of have to do this on the spot. The best way is to voice to the melody. Voice to that melody note. Or voice to a note that harmonizes the melody. A note that is a third away from the original melody. So those are sort of some quick and easy way of figuring out voicing. Voice to the melody. In the example that I used earlier with Lionel, my heart, I worship you. What I'm doing right there, I'm voicing the chord to the melody. Melody's on the top. Lord, I give you my heart, I give you my soul. I don't remember the lyrics right there. But oftentimes I voice to the melody. I'm not saying you got to sit there and play the melody while you have someone singing. But if you're unsure of how the chord is going to sound, like if you didn't get a chance to practice it, then voice to that melody and you'll be in great shape. All right. So I think I got a question that says, Warren, how do you guys do, is that tricks or flicks? What do you call flicks? I'm not really sure what you call flicks. Are you talking about stuff like this? Those are the grace notes. If that's what you're referring, like I'm using these 2 fingers in this case, but you can really use any finger. It's just, gracing the note. So I'm not really sure if that's what you refer to as flicks. Cynthia Story. I know who that is. How are you doing? Cynthia says, Warren, you were late. I know things happen. Sorry. Is that your new t-shirt? No, this is not my new t-shirt. I actually bought this last Christmas. And it says, without music, the world would be flat. Or life would be flat. I saw it came up on my Instagram feed and I was like, I like that shirt. Buy. And I just bought it. But I think it's created by this group of folks out of the UK. I believe they're based in the UK, but I like everything that has piano printed on it. So I thought it was just a cool little design. So I bought it. This is not my design. And for those of you who are interested in the shirts that I wear, you can purchase those. If you look right below my YouTube channel, you see a list showing of all the shirts that I design, and I sell them right there through that program on YouTube. So we got a question here from Joseph. Joseph, he says, how can we balance working through multiple songs a week? I feel like I struggle with one song a week, but I want to get to the point of handling 2, 3 if I can. So Joseph, and this is where you have to be realistic. If you're struggling with getting through one song, then it's not really going to help you to add a second song to it. It's just the reality. Get comfortable just working through one song a week. I guarantee you, the process gets easier. I'm at the point now where I can learn a song in probably 5 minutes. Most songs, by the song ends, I have already absorbed all the chords. I know it. But I remember the days when I would sit there working on a single song for days. Also remember that when I was learning keyboard, there was no YouTube around. There was no tutorials. We had to sit there with what we call a Walkman at that point. You guys remember Walkman or them little CD players? And you got to sit there and we're rewinding stuff and we're playing and we're rewinding and we go, what chord is that? Because at that point, there was no program to slow down the audio either. So it doesn't matter how fast the song was, and we have to figure out that chord. So it took me days sometime to learn a song. But eventually, I got better at it and better at it and better at it, so I can learn songs faster now. So Joseph, if you can only work on one song, just continue doing that. Be consistent with that, And don't forget to push and challenge yourself. Don't just get complacent and be, well, I can only work on one song. Push yourself. And eventually, you might going to realize instead of taking 7 days, you get to a song in 4 days, which means you have 3 more days to probably start looking at another song, So I know you might have the desire where you want to learn 2, 3, 4, 5 songs in a week. But if you're not there yet, don't beat up yourself. Just work on where you're at and try to slowly push and increase the volume as you get better. Questions. So questions from Ali. He says, how to improve sight reading. Now, Ali, I don't really teach note reading on this channel or even in my program because I teach people how to play by ear. But I also have a degree in classical piano performance, which means there was a time when I did nothing else but read music. My recommendation is first, you got to find very simple pieces to practice. When you're practicing sight reading, it's not about perfecting or even learning. Sight reading has nothing to do with memorization. It's about the ability to interpret symbols on a page at millisecond speed. So when you're practicing sight reading, that's why you want to get simple stuff. And then you sit there, you'll try to analyze certain things before you start. Look at your key signature. Make sure you're playing in the right key. Scan the piece for any strange accidentals. So, make sure that there's nothing that jumps out at you. And then go. Slowly. Practice to read. Don't correct yourself. So if you misplayed a note, don't go back and correct it. Because the ability is to be able to translate symbols. That's what you're training your brain to do. And so you don't correct anything. You just play. You can practice one hand at a time. When I was learning how to speed sight read, we have a bunch of books that would practice on, and you can find a lot of them online, Amazon and Google Store. If you go and you search Alfred's piano sight reading books, they have them in different levels, level 1, level 2, and those are great books for sight reading because they're designed with that concept in mind. Very simple melodies. And once I have practiced reading through a piece twice, I move to another piece. Another great thing to practice sight reading on are hymnals. So get a hymnal and just practice sight reading. Again, one hand at a time if you're new to this stuff. The other reason why sight reading for hymns are great is because hymns are usually in 4 parts. And so it forces your peripheral vision this way to be able to see and read 2 clefs, 2 notes in each clef at a time going in block format. So just a little, these are the things I practiced back when I was a classical piano major, learning how to sight read and stuff like that. But right now, I don't read nothing. I do everything by ear. Not that I can't read, I just choose not to anymore. It's not something that I was particularly into. If you give me a score, I can learn it. I can learn it fast. But I'm just all about playing by ear now. It's more fun for me, and that's the stuff I teach. Daquan, you funny, brah. Daquan says, sounds like I've been playing since the single digits. Nah, man, when I wasn't that fortunate. Oh, Sean Wilson gave me a $3.99 donation through the super chat. Thank you, my brother. Mr. Wilson, y'all in the house. And Daquan Bowens, man, these guys have become some of my favorite friends from afar, you know. We got Daquan in New York and Sean from out of Florida. Sean, soon we're going to be state mates. So we got to have to hook up soon, man. And I got some stuff that we're planning for 2021. It's going to have me, Sean Wilson, Daquan Bowens, you know, Corey Taylor, and even my man, Devon from over at, or Davin from over at Worship Leader Hangouts. We got some stuff that's going to come out in 2021, so stay tuned. But just want to recognize these guys for the great work they're also doing for gospel musicians and folks who want to play by ear. Okay, let's jump to some other questions. There's a lot of questions in here. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get through all of these today, folks. Just Daquan being funny here in the chat. So we have another question. Hey, Warren, what do you play with your left hand when you have a bass player in your worship band? Thanks. Janine from Amsterdam. So generally when we have a bass player, we try to do a few things. One, we try to stay out of the bass register completely. Now, for me, the bass player, if you're on an 88 keyboard, for me, that's like the last 3 octaves of the keyboard. I try not to go down there. You know, there are some unique times, you know, and this is, I say unique because it really depends on your ability as a player. I sometimes go down there. And it doesn't interrupt the bass player because I know why I'm going down there and I know what I'm doing. Sometimes I go down there because me and the bass player are doing an exact lick. The bass is doing a lick and I'm doing the same lick. So to make it more pronounced, I'll jump down there and do that with them. But you don't want to down there be playing root and octaves bass note, you know, because that really interrupts the bass player. Some bass player gets pissed when the keyboard player do that. So a lot of the times we stay in the upper register, and that's when you have to get very keen on your inversions. You play a lot more tight-knit chords, so you're inverting chords, you know, you're not jumping around again in octaves and stuff like that. This is also where you can start doing rootless voicings. A lot of rootless voicings, but again, rootless voicing is more of an advanced concept. Only mostly advanced players play with rootless voicings. But those are some of the things you can do. You can start doing drop 2 voicings too. Again, more of an advanced concept. So what I'm saying, Janine, is when you have a bass player, if you're still at the beginner intermediate level where you can't do rootless voicings and drop 2s and stuff, just stay out of the bass register and try to get more creative with your inversions. So you're not constantly playing bass root notes. And it takes a little bit of practice. All right. Paul says, hey Warren, I'm watching from Canada. How can I try to add some dissonance to my playing with licks? Should I start with modes in other scales other than the minor scales? when you see the dissonance with licks, it gets a little tricky there because there are a lot of ways you can do it, but then there are also a lot of ways not to do it. You know, so because it's not like it's a blanket statement. There's some songs, if you play anything dissonant in terms of melodic line, it's just going to sound so wrong that it ruins that section of the song. Generally, when we're playing dissonant licks, it's because we're playing dissonant chords. So usually the licks are a derivative from the dissonant chord we're playing, and we just outline that dissonance in the right hand. Like, for example, you know, if I'm doing... So right here, I'm playing an A7, sharp 5, sharp 9. So in this case, if I play the rootless voicing of that, I could play something like a... Which is I'm just outlining some of the harmony notes in the right hand. Now this A7, sharp 9, sharp 5, if I were to think of certain scales I can play out of it, I might do something like, which is, let me just quickly see what this is. Actually, that note. See, honestly, I don't even know what scale that is. I don't think that it's a scale. I'm just outlining harmonic notes. So I'm playing the sharp 5, the third, the sharp 9, the flat 9, the root, back to the sharp 5. So that's a dissonant lick right there. So if I was doing in the key of C of 1, 6, 2, 5. When I get to that A, I can do the... And then I resolve it to the D. I would need to show you this more details where you can see the screen on my hands, because it is not really a simple concept, but also, again, the dissonant licks usually derives from the dissonant chords. So hopefully that gives you some food for thought. So we got a question from Lee. She says, okay, I will try hard. I think I can consult my piano to practice ear training, and then keep singing different keys and walks. If you have a link, please let me know, or I will email you. I can email you. You can email me, Lee, but also if you want a link to my ear training course, let me just pull that up right now and give that to you. See, ear training. I'm actually going to see if I can come out with the part 2 of this ear training course this year. And I'm also in the process of thinking about putting together an ear training app so that you guys have it on the go. But, you know, as you know, these things take time and money. So I don't have an ETA for that yet, but, you know, I have all these things in the works. So, Lee, if you look in the chat, I just posted the link to my ear training course. Check that out. I guarantee you will learn a lot from it, especially in terms of how to practice ear training. Because like I said, there's a method to it, so you don't feel like you're going out of your mind. Whenever we're working with stuff that is so intangible, you know, at least when you're playing the piano, you can physically touch the keys, you can see the intervals, blah, blah, blah. When we're talking about ear training, it's such an intangible concept. You can't see anything, you can't touch anything. It also has to live inside the head. That makes it very difficult to practice without certain proven tips and guidelines. What else we have? We got another question from Lionel that says, Warren, since you're an advanced player now, Do you still even have a practice session? If so, what are the practice you do? To be honest, Lionel, I don't really practice anymore. And it's not because I felt like, oh, I'm good, I don't need to practice. But it's because I spend so much time focusing on teaching you guys. That's literally what I do all day. Answering emails, writing new course outline about creating new courses, transcribing songs so I can teach you guys the chords, creating YouTube video tutorials, creating lead sheets, charts. This is what I do full time now. So I spend a lot of time on helping you guys. And so I don't get to push myself as much as I would like anymore. And you know what? To be honest, I am somewhat comfortable with that. Not that I don't learn. I still learn new stuff because, like I said, I do a lot of transcriptions now. A lot more than I did before. So I learn a lot through transcriptions. But in terms of especially the technical aspect of piano, like improving my technique to be able to play faster, cleaner, just more crazy, I don't push myself in that area anymore simply because my focus has shifted over the last 5 years towards teaching, becoming a better teacher than a better player. So that's sort of where I'm at. Maybe there will come a time when I kind of get back into a more regimented practicing, but now my focus is more about how can I become the best teacher I can be. Because you guys probably know by now that not everybody who plays well can teach well. And not everybody who teach well can play well. Something there to think about. Being a phenomenal player doesn't mean you're any good as a teacher, because teaching in itself is a skill that takes time to develop through practicing, through listening to the students, and then figuring out ways to explain the concept, not just so one person can understand, but many. I mean, right now I got 106 folks viewing. The YouTube channel has almost now 90,000 subscribers. So when I teach, I'm trying to think about how I can explain this thing so everybody understands. At the end of the day, I know not everybody's going to understand, and not everybody's going to even like what I'm doing, because you can see every one of my videos, people have thumbs down on it. And it doesn't bother me. But the majority of the folks who follow the channel, they're learning, and I can know that because they comment, because they email me, because they text me. So I know people are learning, and that's what I strive to do, is to be better so I can help more people. That's my goal now. All right. Cynthia, do you use drop chords with the song you just played? Are you talking about drop two? To be honest, Cynthia, the drop two voicing is something that came on my radar about 2-3 years ago. But it's not something that I really use. I probably should start using it more in my playing, because it does have a nice, unique sound. I understand the theory about it, and I only need to sit down with it for probably a month, shedding it, learning all different variations to be able to use it effectively. But I don't think in terms of drop two voicings. I know Sean Wilson and Corey Taylor, they do a lot of that stuff. Not so much me. All right. Let's see what else we got. So we have a problem from Akuma. It says, Warren, I have problem in running scales perfectly. I have been trying this for 2 years. For 2 years now, but to no avail. You can show me some tricks. So if you've been practicing this for 2 years, Akuna, and you've been having problems, I almost know exactly the problem you're having. It's not, you're most likely, because I used to spend hours practicing scales. Here are some tricks. You're either practicing your scales too fast. Scale practice, and if you just if you type in YouTube search bar, major scales Warren, You'll see my videos on major scales where I cover all 12 with the correct fingering, but also in that I teach you some tips to keep in mind when practicing. 90% of your scale practicing going just slow. But when time comes for that old guy to fight, he can move as fast as anyone else, if not faster. The similar concept applies to piano playing. Being able to play fast doesn't mean you practice fast. You practice slow. If you can master your scales slowly, speed is going to come a lot quicker because you learn how to practice without anxiety, tension, and accuracy. Remember that whatever you practice most is how you're going to play. So if most of your practicing is you practicing fast and fumbling and tripping and you have tension in your body and your frustration, all of that, you're practicing and reaffirming that, and that will become the standard of how you play. If you want to be able to play your scales nice, clean, smooth, and accurate, you have to spend most of your time practicing them that way, which means slow practice. Make sure you're using the correct fingering. Make sure you're pressing down really hard in the keys. And I guarantee you do that for 3 months and you see a turnaround. Shouldn't take you 2 years. Okay, what's going on, Bonnie? I haven't seen you in a bit. All right. Thank you, Bonnie, for the super chat donation. For y'all who's wondering what that is, if you look down in the chat, you'll see a little $sign. It says support piano lesson with wine when you hover over it. But basically, you can click on that and you can donate something from any amount of money you want. $1, $100, $20, $30. But that's just the way, if you like the channel and you want to support, you can easily support. I believe you need to have your either funds or your card connected to Google or to Apple Pay or something like that. But thank you. So Piano Port says, I totally agree with what you just said about great teachers not necessarily great players and vice versa. Yeah, it's true. See, a lot of people think, like I see a lot of people that say, Corey Henry's a master on keyboard, which he totally is. I love the guy. I go to his concert. And a lot of people say, man, why don't you do lessons? Why don't you do lessons? Corey doesn't teach lessons. Maybe because he doesn't want to. But the fact that Corey's a great player doesn't mean he would be a great teacher. Who knows? But, a guy of Corey's stature, a guy that is so good, he probably don't need to teach because he's making good money being a performer. That's why a lot of people also feel like they need to chase after keyboard players who play for these big name artists and these big brand churches because, if these guys are this good to play for these people and these churches, that mean they're good enough to teach me. And I understand the logic behind that statement. Just know that it's not necessarily true. A lot of people ask me, hey man, did you go to Berkeley? Nope. I went to a school in Jamaica. Then I came to the US, went to University of Southern Maine. Both two no-name schools. Nobody knows these schools. But that's where I studied music. But people think because I play well, I teach well, I must go to Berkeley. No. Berkeley's not the be-end all, end all in terms of all good teachers and players come from Berkeley. Some of the best players didn't even set foot in a music school, period. So, it's a fallacy when folks say you're a good player, so that means you got to be a good teacher. What's up, Barry? Question. We can see some classical technique on your playing. Yes, I did spend 8 years studying classical piano performance. 4 years in Jamaica and 4 years here in the United States. Do you still play classical piano these days? Hell no. I couldn't play any of my classical pieces if you asked me to. That chapter of my life has been closed and put away. It was rigorous. When I was a classical piano major, it was hard work. I'm not going to kid you, man. I respect people who have made a career out of classical music for 40 years, 50 years, because it's not easy. It used to take me legit 3, 4 months to learn one piece. I mean, it was some big, heavy pieces. I was playing 20-minute sonatas and half-hour long concertos and stuff. I don't want to go back to spending 6 months learning one piece anymore. No. It was a great experience for me as a young guy, new to music, to be under that pressure, that regiment, day in, day out. It definitely made me who I am today. And it's why I value so much technique. I'm very, peculiar about technique and ear training and stuff like that, because it's what laid the foundation for me. It's why I am the player I am today, because of those years I invested studying that stuff. Now, I'm not saying you guys have to follow the same path as I did if you want to be a great player. You totally don't. This was just the path that was laid out for me, and I just followed it. When I came to the United States, I only came here because I got a full scholarship. If I didn't get that scholarship, the guy here sitting in front of you probably wouldn't be doing this. I'd probably be doing something else. But that's the only way I was able to come to America, because of the full scholarship. Because when I graduated college in Jamaica, I graduated the top of my class as the valedictorian. I wasn't shooting for that. I just wanted to be the best keyboard player I could be. But at the end of the year, the 4 years, they said, you're the guy who best fits to be the valedictorian because of the hard work, how much you have grown over these 4 years. Because I came in at the bottom of the barrel, just out of high school, barely knew anything about music, could only play probably like 2 songs from memory, tops. So in the 4 years, I grew exponentially because I was just focused on being the best keyboard player I can be. So that's what landed me a full scholarship here in the United States, University of Southern Maine, to continue my classical piano studies, where I did a 2nd degree in piano performance. So, but yeah, I always knew that my heart wasn't in classical music. It's right what I'm doing now. Gospel music is where I belong. And the Lord just decided to detour me to classical because he knew I had a lot to learn. And that was the best route for me to learn all the things I needed to learn, so he could bring me back to be the gospel pianist I am today. Thank you, Fortune Osadolor, for the super chat donation. He says, I recommend Warren membership to everyone. He's given structure to my practice and have improved since joining. Thank you so much, man, for the shout out and for the recommendation. It is amazing. And we have Bonnie says, I've been singing and practicing. Yep. Don't forget listening. Keep listening, keep singing, keep practicing. Don't forget that one. We have a question from Deliverance. Since I joined the channel, my playing has changed so much. Be blessed, my great tutor, but I'm struggling on my hand independence. This is another one of the questions I get a lot of. Folks say, hand independence. How do I separate the hands? And there are a couple exercises. I mean, part of it is a time thing, especially if you're a beginner, the independence takes time. But outside of that, make sure you're practicing technique development exercises, scales, arpeggios, blocked chords, broken chords. Make sure you're doing them with each hand individually and then hands together. That will go miles away in helping your hand independence. And I'm also going to be coming out with a course soon on rhythms and little things you can practice for hand independence. Cynthia says, how does your classical studies influence your playing now? I believe I may have answered that before seeing this question. Definitely the technique. Definitely. The clarity and speed that you guys see me play with is directly contributed to classical music. Playing just dozens of sonatas and Baroque music and, Beethoven and Bach and Chopin, all that stuff. The technique development came from the classical world. And I learned everything about chords. I also learned a lot about ear training then, but the chordal stuff, the understanding and depth that I have developed on harmony, I learned that on my own, and I also took some jazz theory classes in college. So that's how the classical has impacted my playing today. The discipline also, when I talk about regimen and practicing and consistency, that I got from classical, because I had to be disciplined and consistent to be able to pass my classes and exams, because every semester I had to perform for the professors at least 3 classical pieces from memory. So if I didn't, I would fail. And if I fail, I would lose my scholarship. That was not an option. So I worked hard. Karen. My twin sister name is Karen, by the way. Yes, I am a twin. I have a twin sister. She's back in Jamaica. She doesn't have much of a desire to come to the United States. Let me add, Karen says, Warren, you skipped my questions. My apologies. Where can I purchase your t-shirts? So Karen, if you look below any of my YouTube videos, just below the videos, I believe it's below the chat. No, actually it's before the chat. Once you look below any of my YouTube videos, you will see my shirts. Just click on one of them and it takes you to the store. Actually, let me see if I can just pull up the store right now real quick for you. All right. All right. So here is the Here is Karen. Here's the link. I just posted in the chat. Here's the link to my store, my t-shirt store, so you can see all the listed t-shirts. I just posted in the chat. All right. Zira Gabs says, thank God that chapter was over, man. You belong to the gospel jazz world. I feel like I do too, man. The Lord's been calling me towards this for a very long time. And I kind of ignore it, but, a few years ago, it became apparent that this is where I should be. So I'm glad I eventually listened and take heed, because life for me now is it's so much simpler, because I feel like I have a purpose. I feel like I know my purpose. Each morning I wake up, I open my eyes, I'm excited. What am I going to create today? What am I going to talk about today? What emails I'm going to get today from folks, what comments I'm going to get today on the channel. It's something I look forward to each week, each day. Thank you, Corey Taylor. Oh, we got full house today. We got Sean, we got Corey, and we got Bowens. All the guys in the house today. Thank you so much, brother, for the super chat donation. I appreciate it greatly. And I appreciate the collaboration we did the other day on Drop 2 voicing. If you guys haven't seen that, Corey did a phenomenal job in explaining Drop 2 voicing. And I'm sure he has a lot more content around that. So you guys head over to Skilled Musicians YouTube channel and check out Corey Taylor. He's doing some great stuff over there. So we have Leno that says, Warren, I want to purchase the course of Your Secret to Passing Chords, but I don't have any, is that credit card or PIN card? What do you call a PIN card? Yes, unfortunately, to purchase any of my courses or to join the membership, you need a credit card or a debit card. That's just how the internet is set up. I don't take Bitcoins because not a lot of people trade Bitcoins. Bitcoins hasn't been globalized yet. I guarantee you, when Bitcoins become a global thing where banks start exchanging Bitcoins too with consumers, I'll be the first to make sure that Bitcoin purchase is implemented on the website. But for now, Bitcoin still a volatile system. You know, a lot of people don't take it, so I can't jump into Bitcoin world until it's become, more mainstream and a lot more people are using it. So right now, the only way to do it, credit cards, debit cards. I don't do MoneyGram or Western Union because that I don't have the infrastructure to deal with that. Me going to MoneyGram or the Western Union requires my time. Going there, that's more work. Right now, everything is done automated and online. I don't need to be a part of the transaction process, which makes things easier for the student, easier for me. We're talking about MoneyGram and all that now. That's a whole nother can of worms, which I'm not really equipped to deal with that right now. So, but hey, Leno, try to get a prepaid credit card. I know that they offer those. Prepaid. You get a card and you just put money on it whenever you want. You know what I mean? And I believe you can go to a MoneyGram store and get that done too. Just get a prepaid card, so you can use that whenever you want. I know a lot of folks currently on my website who purchase courses, part of the membership, they're doing that through prepaid cards. Yeah? So look into that option. So can you pronounce my name? I actually can't pronounce your name. I can pronounce your last name, Foster, but that first name, is it Jupal? Jupal? I can't pronounce your name, brother. Sorry. Tommy says, I saw drop two voicing, but was beyond me. Perhaps in the future. Yeah, the drop two voicing thing by no means is not a beginner concept. It's not even an intermediate concept. It's advanced. At that point, you got to be very clear and comfortable with standard progressions and standard voicings before you jump into drop two voicing. But the reason why I wanted to do a tutorial on it, because it's used heavily in gospel music. So we wanted to get folks tuned to that concept. One that says, what about Cash App? Cash App could be a potential thing I would work with. Cash App would probably work because I do have Cash App. That's more easier to work with. So tell you what, if you, Wanda or Leno, if you guys are interested in doing some Cash App purchase, shoot me an email and we can talk more about the process of doing that there. I also use Venmo. So if you guys know what that is, Cash App, Venmo, PayPal, I'm on all that stuff. Like I said, once a payment process become mainstream, I'll be on that. So you can look out for that. Question, hey Warren, can you tell us which one is the best system to train ears? Interval recognition, perfect fourth, fifth, etc., or the degree inside the scale? I'm not sure I understand the distinctions between these two. Whenever you're new to ear training, you first want to start with intervallic training. Because remember, intervals are the building blocks of music. Scales are built on intervals. Chords are built on intervals. Melodies are built on intervals. They're the building block. They're the chromosome of music. So everybody has to start there. You have to start with understanding intervals as it relates to a scale, because music doesn't exist outside of scales. Scale is the container, and the music lives within the scale. Most music is going to be in either a major scale or a minor scale. And then we can embellish the music with additional scales like the blues scale, the pentatonic scale, the modes. Those are what we call embellished scales. The music doesn't live in those scales. The music is either going to live in a tonality, which is either major or minor. Now I'm talking strictly Western music now. I'm not talking about songs that are more complex, that are based on modal structure like certain jazz complex songs. I'm just talking about your standard gospel tune. It's going to be in either major or minor, and then we embellish the song using those scales. So that's why you want to get comfortably first with being able to sing and understand intervals. I always recommend major key first, and then you move to the minor key. All right? We got a question from Bonnie. I saw, or not Bonnie. I saw that drop to voicing. I still watch your advanced videos to stay motivated. That's a good thing to do, Bonnie. Question from LP Music. If I practice one scale until I'm comfortable with it, do I move and forget about it, or do I have to still practice together with the new scales I'm learning? So a couple things, LP. I always recommend folks to use my practice template structure. That helps you to not just practice things in isolation in terms of you're spending 6 months on one scale. Second thing is, I always recommend people to get familiar with the major scale, the minor scale, the blues scale, and the pentatonic scale. Make those your main focus, because most music you're going to play is going to use a combination of these. You need to understand these. Once you get comfortable with these, then you can branch off into modes and stuff like that. Also, there comes a time when certain things you just don't forget it anymore. I haven't practiced a major scale in years, but I can play any major scale at any speed if you ask me to, like that. And I don't practice them anymore. So certain concept after a while, when you've practiced them well enough, they sort of become a part of your foundation, which means you don't forget them anymore. Blues scale, pentatonic scale, major scale, minor scales, I can play without thinking about it. When you get into more obscure scales now, like scales that you don't use a lot, the diminished scales, or some, Phrygian minor, or some more obscure, what we call the jazz exotic scales, those I might have to think about it a little bit because I don't practice those on the regular. I never did because I don't use them as much. So if that's what your question is leaning towards, hopefully this helps. But I'm more concerned about the scales that you're going to be using regular. Major, minor, blues, pentatonic. Once you learn your major and your minor scales really well, you also subconsciously have learned all your church modes. So when we talk about the Dorian, Phrygian, Lydian, Mixolydian, Aeolian, Ionian, those are modes. They're derived scale from the major scale. So once you learn your major scales well, you probably have learned those scales 90% already. It's just a matter of now looking at them from the modal perspective to get a good feel. The fingering also work themselves out. So that's why I don't even tell people to practice modes, because the major and the minor scales covers modes. You just don't know yet. All right, Herbert says, would you recommend I learn classics to get better? All right, Herbert. So here's the thing. If your desire is to play gospel music, classical is not going to get you any closer to that. And I say that because I came from the classical world. Yes, I was able to transfer a lot of the knowledge learned as a classical pianist in terms of technique, understanding of theory and all of that, but I still had to spend a lot of time learning the language of gospel music. There are also a lot of other students I currently have who are phenomenal classical players, but they don't know nothing about gospel music. The style, the chords, the feel. That's not going to get any better by learning classical music. So my recommendations are, if you want to learn how to read music, if you want to learn some more technique, then classical music will help with that. But if you want to get better playing by ear and get better at playing chords and get better at that bluesy gospel sound and feel, then you can ignore classical music because it's not going to help with any of those things. Thank you, Avatar Darnell, for the contribution through the super chat. I really appreciate it. Thank you, brother. Thank you. Questions from Blessings. He says, hey, Warren, how to find a secondary dominant of a minor second, third, and sixth whilst moving from a 1 to the ones I mentioned above. This question's a little bit complex, brother, and it's not clear. If you're asking how to find a secondary dominant for chord 2, 3, and 6. Now, secondary dominance is basically when you take a chord that is not native diatonic dominant seventh and you make it dominant seventh. For example, in every major key, only the 5 chord is a natural diatonic dominant 7th chord. If I'm playing the key of C and I go to G7, that's a G dominant 7th, and all the notes are diatonic to the key of C. Any other chord, for me to make it into a dominant 7th, I have to introduce a note that doesn't belong to the key. So I'm not really sure how your question is being worded, but hopefully this gives you some understanding on what dominant sevenths are, or secondary dominants. Usually a secondary dominant chord is resolving up a fourth. So if I turn C7, C into a dominant seventh, C7, that chord is going to naturally want to resolve to F. If I turn A minor into A7, dominant seventh, it's most likely going to want to resolve to D minor. It always resolves a fourth above. But this is how dominant seventh function in its basic form. Once you get to the intermediate, advanced, and advanced, we use dominant seventh in a lot more different ways. We resolve them in a lot more different ways. So, yeah. All right. I'm going to have to jump off soon, so I'm going to answer just a few more questions, and then I got to split, guys. Deliverance says, despite the fact that you are a great piano player, have you ever felt like giving up by not being able to do something on piano? If so, what keeps you going when you face discouragements? So, Deliverance, earlier I talked about purpose. And that's what kept me going. Now, when I was a student, or when I was just, let me give you a little quick history. When I just started out learning music, it was for the fun of it. It was something I saw and found fascinating. I would watch the guy at my church play and I'd be like, yo, that sounds cool. What is he doing? How does he know which one of them keys to press? I was fascinated, curious. So he started showing me some stuff. Now, I also got into music because I used to sing in an a cappella group with my brother and some friends locally. And we would try to harmonize each other, but we were terrible at it. And so the guy at my church, he's like, if you want to learn more about harmony when you're singing, you should learn some keyboards. You got to learn how chords work. And he said, chords are like voices. And I was like, oh, really? So I started to approach the keyboard from a vocal perspective where I would try to harmonize notes and move certain things. And so my keyboard was always set to the strings patch because I would treat it like voices and I'd be like, ooh, and I'll just mess around with notes. I didn't even know what chords I was playing or nothing like that. And that was music for me back then. Now we're talking about like 2003. That was what music was for me. It was just an experiment. But then I got serious because I'm like, you know what got me serious was when I heard Take 6. And I heard them harmonies, man. I was like, oh my Lord. I never heard something so good in my life. I'm like, what are those guys doing? How are they creating those sounds with their voices? And the guy says, who was teaching me, says, these guys are singing ninths and sevenths and altered dominants. And none of those terms made any sense to me. It's like, what is an altered dominant? But I wanted to understand so much what Take 6 were doing. That's what got me serious about learning piano. And that's what got me obsessed with harmony, understanding how chords work. Take 6. And then I started listening to the Manhattan Transfer and all the jazz quartets and other jazz groups, the harmonies that they would sing. And I couldn't understand it or figure it out. So Fast forward after that, I applied to music school, got in, and I took every theory class that was offered. But to get back to your question, deliverance, once I got into college, that became my motivation. I applied, but I really didn't think I was going to get in because I knew nothing about music. I didn't think I was going to get in, and they took me into college on a preliminary qualifying basis, where they say, Warren, we're going to give you 1 year to take these classes, and if you pass these classes at the end of the year, then you get to go into year one. So my motivation was I cannot fail. This is an opportunity. They're giving me an opportunity that they didn't have to give me. I can't fail, because to me, failure would be a disappointment to my family. I would have to go back home to the country in Jamaica to my dad and my sisters and my brother with my head held in shame that I failed out. So I didn't want that. So I worked hard, man, worked hard. I got into year one. Now, once I got into year one, I had even more skin in the game. Can't fail. I did 8 years of university. Throughout those 8 years, I got a lot of scholarships and donations and contributions to help me pay for college because I couldn't afford it. My dad couldn't afford it. So once people started helping out and pitching in and giving a little money there, and my church give a little bit of money, and I get some scholarships from the bank, I couldn't let these people down. So I had to continue, which means I had to pass all my classes. But beyond just the me not wanting to fail out and be a failure, like I said, I was obsessed. I wanted to learn this thing. I wanted to understand it. So that's what kept me going. Now, once I graduated from college, what kept me going as a musician was when I started teaching people. And I realized that now all these people are relying on me to help them become a better musician. I can't give up. I can't let these people down. And so while there are things that I wish I could play like Corey Henry. I wish I could play like Corey Taylor too. I wish I could play like this kid from out of, I think, Colombia. Jesus Molina, or this other kid from out of Korea. What's he called again? I can't remember him. But anyway, you guys will probably know who I'm talking about. Like, these guys are burning. I wish I could do that stuff. And if I spend the next couple of years, I would get to that level. But again, that's not my focus. My focus right now isn't to be the best burning keyboard player I can be. That desire is not there for me anymore. My desire now is to be the best teacher I can be. That's it. I'm obsessed with being the best teacher. And that's because I see a lot of bad teaching out there online. Very bad. The only few online piano teachers that I like and respect. And you guys probably know who those guys are already, because I talk about them from time to time. I have them on my channel. But there's not a lot of teachers that I respect online because they don't spend time trying to be good teachers. And I have a problem with that. And so I try to be the best teacher I can be. And that's my goal. That's my motivation. That's my purpose. And that's what keeps me going. So deliverance. What you should do for today, sit and think about your purpose with music. If you're a minister to your church, then most likely the church relies on you every Sunday to show up. You might say, man, but I'm just a beginner. I'm an intermediate player. Yeah, but you're the only one who shows up and play. You all they got. You quit, then there's no music in church. So at some stage of the game, there's probably people relying on your musical expertise. You may think you're not that good or you're just starting out. But the fact is, you know more than anyone else in the space, which is why you're playing. And people are relying on you to show up, even if you're just playing triads. That's a purpose right there that the Lord has given you. Now, remember in the scripture, the Bible talks about the folks who were given different talents. And Bible say they went out and some people multiplied their talents tenfold, while some people didn't do nothing with it. They came back with the same old talent that they were given. And the Lord take this person's talent and give it to that person because he said, you did nothing with it. So the Lord gave you a little seed of a talent. It might be you're a beginner, but the Lord placed you in that position. Now you got to grow that seed into a tree that blossom over time. If I stood at the same level I was in rural Jamaica back in 2003, just not doing nothing or letting my discouragement not take me down instead of pushing me forward, then fast forward, I would still be there, probably just doing the same basic stuff. But I pushed myself, I challenged myself, and you knew what happened? Once I started pushing challenge, the Lord started to open doors for me. Like I said, I couldn't afford college. My dad couldn't afford college. But yet still, I was able to spend 8 years, 0 student loans. Because the Lord placed people in my life and in my path that would open doors for me and contribute to my education. Now, I'm fortunate. Not a lot of people had that opportunity. And that's why I felt like I was given a great opportunity, and that's why I'm not wasting it. And so each day I wake up, my goal is, how can I be better at this? How can I help more people? And because I see it as me giving back to the gifts and blessings that's been bestowed on me all these years. All right, folks. Well, it's 5:21 here. I need to go walk my son in the stroller. We go for a walk every evening. So that's what I'm going to do now. I wish I could answer more of y'all questions. But if you have some burning questions that you really know I can help you with, just shoot them to my email. Head over on the website. You can shoot me from the contact form right there. I will get it, and I will definitely respond to you. Thanks again for all you guys who showed up for the live chat. Hopefully, you can scroll back to the beginning of the video once we close out to get those tips on how to learn songs the right way so you can memorize them longer. All right? So thank you guys for watching. And as always, keep listening, keep practicing, keep singing, all that good stuff, because it will help you become a great musician. All right? So thanks again for hanging out, guys, and I will see you next week. If not next week, on the website over at pianolessonwithwarren.com. I have all the courses you need and more as I continue to update that platform with just everything I have, constantly tweaking and updating as I learn more about what helps you guys and how I can make the learning experience more fun, more enjoyable, more educational. All right? So bye for now and have a wonderful week.